Agent Romanov. You miss me?
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan.
Captain.
Your Highness.
Captain, big fan, Spider-Man. Hey everyone.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Film Artsy. I'm your guy, Trey Baker, and today we're going to be going behind the scenes of the making of the hit Disney Plus series, Loki. Loki left a lot of fans satisfied, including me, with an edge of our seat ending to an altogether really interesting show, digging into our favorite god of mischief and his deviation from the sacred timeline, meeting up with another variant of himself to take on this all-supreme authority, the TVA. If you haven't watched Loki yet, I guess I threw some spoilers already in there, but if you have, if you're like me, it really left us in awe and excited for what's coming next in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All that being said, one of the cooler things is the budget on this show was massive, like the two shows preceding it, WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier. There's rumors that Loki, similar to the other shows, had somewhere around $20-something million in budget to work with for the production value. What's really cool about that is that we get to look at some of the really interesting behind the scenes with how they're using things like the blue screen, which I mentioned in a previous video, and other CGI elements to create fantastical, out of this world realms. And also just that we don't really have a dip between the movie quality and the show quality. So today, let's look at some of the cool behind the scenes effects, some really interesting things about developing the show of Loki, and just getting to see more of our favorite guy, Tom Hiddleston. So let's get started. Something that I read was interesting is actually director Kate Herron was told by her agent that when she was going to meet with Marvel, it was very informal and low-key, and so she shouldn't have to prepare like a bunch of ideas and stuff. This is just a meet and greet. Instead, she ignored the agent's advice and actually prepared a very elaborate idea for the Loki show, thus confirming Marvel's suspicion that she was definitely the right director for this show. And it shows you that really the idea that they generated for Loki was quite out there and unlike anything we've had in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to date. Loki utilizes a lot of blue screen. This is something that I learned during the Falcon and Winter Soldier when I was preparing for that video, is that blue screen has become kind of the favorite way to cut out the background and add all these CGI elements as opposed to green screen, which is guess what I'm using, so maybe I should get a blue screen. But as you can see here, there's just some fun things that they're able to do, and it really elevated the show's production quality. Another interesting thing about the show is that there's a lot of choreographed fighting, and each character in the show, Loki, Owen Wilson, or Sylvie, primarily Loki and Sylvie, had fighting styles directly developed for their type of character, and they really considered the origin of these characters when making these fighting sequences. Loki, for example, is Asgardian trained. Despite his magic and mischief, he's actually probably one of the more proficient fighters in the MCU. I mean, he's Asgardian, so one of the first things that they would have been doing at a young age is learning to fight. And you can see that in the way he fights in the show, and in some of these sequences with his trainers, that's very fluid, very professional, and it's very much like he knows what he's doing. On the flip side, we have Sylvie, who's a much more of an aggressive, rough around the edges fighter. She's very violent and crude in her fighting style, but effective. You can tell it through the power and the way that she fights. And what's even more interesting is that Sylvie's storyline, as we find out in the Assemble episode, it does exist in the comics, but this is a version of her in the show that's actually a combination of two characters from the Marvel source material. The first is Sylvie Luston, a woman from Oklahoma upon whom Loki bestows magical powers and took on as his apprentice, and the combination with that Sylvie is the second is Enchantress, aka Amora, a powerful Asgardian sorceress. So those who are kind of wondering whether there's going to be an Enchantress or this is in fact is actually Assemble is confirmed that it's a combination of these two characters, making the Sylvie in the Loki series her own unique character. Another fun point was a fan favorite sequence with Richard E. Grant as being the classical Loki. Remember in episode 5 where we got all the different Loki variants starting to come into play, and Richard Grant stole the show. He just owned classical Loki, and there was just something so endearing and captivating about him. This narrative of him being the Loki that survived Thanos' attack and grew out his old days, and then for him to yell glorious purpose while taking on Alioth at the very end, is one we won't soon forget. The interesting point about Richard Grant's performance and portrayal of classical Loki is that the role was literally written for him. Even the concept art was drawn with his face. Really, it's going to be Richard Grant playing classical Loki, or we're not going to have classical Loki. And Tom Hiddleston admits that there was really no one else considered for his part. And the rest is history. Richard Grant's performance as classical Loki, his brief couple minutes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is acclaimed history. So congrats to Richard Grant, and we really did love having you on the big screen.
Before we continue our video, I just want to let you guys know that we have a really cool Instagram that updates on a regular basis. So if you like all things Marvel, this is the Instagram for you. So go follow that filmartsy Instagram right now. You won't regret it, I promise you. Seriously, open Instagram right now and click that follow button. Now back to the video.
This one might be one of my favorites. Amongst all the behind the scenes is the gator physics of Alligator Loki. Alligator Loki was a smash hit, and the production team actually worked incredibly hard to strike the perfect balance between natural movement and willy cunning of the alligator variant. Director Heron asked for a gator that was very handsome, had beautiful eyes, and the VFX team really rose to the occasion to create this realistic looking alligator while still having this handsome and beautiful eyes look to kind of show that it's a variant of Loki. He was a unique character because of the fact that sometimes the physics of a real alligator are not taken into consideration in the way he moves. So this character was already pretty unique, and they specifically asked the VFX team to kind of give it that handsome, beautiful eye look because it is a variant of Loki. The Loki team also consulted with a real world support alligator named Wally, and as you can see in these clips, this Wally looks like the variant Loki alligator, and this is where they got a lot of inspiration of how to design him and make him behave, work, and move in the Loki show. The alligator was not the only place where they had to gain inspiration, but Alioth, the voice attack dog, a reticent being that gobbles up all the TVA's pruned rubbish, was ultimately inspired and derived from nature. Director Heron says nature can be terrifying, and wanted to tease Alioth like Steven Spielberg did with the man-eating shark Jaws, leading to the idea of the natural world's more destructive tendencies. Immediately, the team started to pull up pictures of volcanic eruptions and pyroclastic flows, and absolutely beautiful thermal lighting within these pyroclastic flows, thus resulting in our eventual product, Alioth, the evil dust cloud. Another thing confirmed in this Assemble series, and I know this is behind the scenes, but it's worth noting, is they do confirm that He Who Remains is not Kane exactly. He's not exactly King Conqueror. We knew this and we theorized this, but here's some, there's some fun sequences of Jonathan Majors playing the role of Kane, but actually we know that he is indeed, He Who Remains is actually just afraid of the Kane to come. This is important to note because as we go forward, that the Jonathan Majors we're going to get in the MCU has nothing really to do with He Who Remains, but it's actually a variant of He Who Remains, and that is indeed Kane the Conqueror. Another really cool note is actually here at the very end, before we finish this video, is the TVA time portal doors. They gain a lot of inspiration for these time portal doors from David Lynch's Dune. Slightly look on the doors of the TVA used to jump between timelines was difficult. They actually went through 150 designs and ultimately drew their final inspiration from the training sequences in this Dune movie. And those TVA doors are now an iconic MCU reference. All that being said, Loki was an incredible show, and these behind the scenes, go watch the Assemble episode. It's really worth the watch to see how they made this incredible show, and I can't wait for season 2. Let me know what you thought about Loki in the comments. Was there something you noticed behind the scenes that you really enjoyed? Let us know, and if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. It helps us here. We're trying to give you guys this content on the daily, and as always, until next time, guys, thanks for watching.